Hey guys, it's Jay Padilla. I hope you're all having a great day. In today's video, I'm going to be helping you guys with making your stiff or flat poses more dynamic and energetic, with a few tips you should consider and apply to your drawings to make them really stand out. In the background, I'm going to be doing some quick practice poses and choosing one to make into a fully finished drawing. So let's jump right into it with tip number 1. I'm not going to lie to you. Being able to draw cool dynamic poses that still feel real and grounded, even with extreme exaggerations and stylization, is not easy, especially if you're new to doing it. But there is an exercise you can do that will develop your skills in this area and help you draw not just dynamic poses, but any pose you want. And if you do it long enough, you can eventually be able to draw poses from memory. And the exercise is called gesture drawing. Now, if you don't know what gesture drawing is, I'll tell you as simply as I can. Gesture drawing is an exercise in which you make a quick, simplified drawing of a figure or a model. The drawings that you see me doing on screen can be considered examples of gesture drawing. To practice doing gesture drawing, all you need to do is gather as many references as you want to study and make sure for the references you can actually see the figure underneath, so you know where each part of the figure is and the majority of the body is not covered by accessories or baggy clothing. Then you can either just relax and study the poses and try to capture the essence of it with simplified lines and strokes, or you can time yourself to see how quickly you can capture the figure and move on to the next one. Now for the next tip, I touched on it a little just now, and I continue to bring it up in almost every one of my videos because I want to stress how important this is for the development of your artistic skills. This is a point that I will keep bringing up as many times as I can because many people try to shame or discredit an artist by saying that using reference is cheating and that you aren't a quote-unquote pro if you have to use reference. Those people have absolutely no idea what they're talking about and should be completely ignored. The honest truth is, no matter how long you've been an artist, you will get really good at drawing a lot of different things, but every now and again, you are going to have to look at reference, because if you become overconfident in your skills and think, oh, I know what this is, I can draw it no problem, you can begin to miss mistakes in your art that could easily be fixed by just a quick glance at a piece of reference. And now you don't have to waste time with correction because you did it right the first time. I said all that so you can understand that making dynamic drawings is not an easy thing to do. So this is when reference comes in clutch. Let me show you what I mean. Say I wanted to make a dynamic shot of a guy cutting someone with a sword. I can go online and find different photos of people swinging swords, and once I find the ones that best suit what I'm looking for, I can compile them all together and start doing some quick gestures of each, but not just a one-to-one copy of the reference. I can just use it as a basis and try the pose from different angles and perspectives, or even combine two different references together to make a completely different pose, and figure out the one that best fits what I'm going for through trial and error, which leads into my next tip. Thumbnail sketching is very useful for helping figure out the right pose you want to continue forward with without putting a lot of time and energy in drawing a pose, then redrawing it and erasing and fixing mistakes repeatedly. For those who don't know, thumbnails are when you draw a pose or composition with minimum detail and small on your page. I use thumbnail sketching for the majority of my finished pieces. You can see the comparisons from concept to finished drawing right now. If you're not 100% sure on a pose or an angle or composition, then just do some quick iterations of a pose or an action as thumbnails until you find something that you're happy with. And now let's get into building up our dynamic pose once we've laid down these foundations. Once you've practiced your gesture drawings, you found your references, and you've done your thumbnailing and iterations for the different poses, and you finally found one you really like and decided to move forward with, now it's time to move on over to a new canvas and start your dynamic pose. Now this isn't a definitive process you have to take when doing your drawings. This is just a step-by-step process I go through when finishing up my drawings. But for some people, they can just jump straight from a loose sketch directly to the finished line art. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to take it slow. So you have your pose ready and you've drawn out the loose gesture. Now you're going to give the pose form and shape by constructing the figure using simple shapes and volume. Construction is one of the major art principles that you should learn if you want to make art that isn't flat and instead stands out to your audience. I touched on the art fundamentals in my video on how to improve your art skills, which you can check out right after this video if you feel inclined. But back to the topic, once you've put down your basic gesture, you can then add in these simple shapes to build up the character so it looks like they are living and interacting in 3D space. And once you have those basic shapes down, you can then put down the anatomy on top, and now you have a figure that is already in a dynamic pose. So now I'm going to show you how you can take this pose and push it to the next level. Now that you've finished your pose and you're happy with how it turned out, if you want to push it even further, you can choose the composition or the focus or framing you want to convey with your drawing. Composition is the way in which different elements of an artwork are combined or arranged. So in essence, every drawing has composition inherently, but what makes some drawings more appealing than others is the way in which you organize your composition. Now, composition is a subject that deserves a video all to itself, so for now I'm just going to lay out a few points to consider when you want to frame your drawings. First, you want to think about what exactly is the focus of the drawing. If it's a portrait, then more than likely you will simply put the face in the middle of the canvas. If it's an action piece, then you want to lay out the figure's environment and perspective in a way that draws the eye across the page with the flow of the action. Different angles invoke different emotions. For instance, if you do a top-down perspective drawing of a character, it makes them seem small, weak, or helpless. But if you do the opposite and do an inside view of a character, it makes them seem larger than life, powerful, and overwhelming. You need to be intentional with every aspect of your work if you want to make a bigger impact. Foreshortening is a good skill to have when it comes to making your art jump off the page, but it can also be pretty tricky because you can easily distort the art into something that completely breaks the foundation you've previously established. It can result in weird looking anatomy or environments, which oftentimes you don't want. However, there are times where you can make it work for different purposes, like a fish eyes lens drawing, when you intentionally add in the distortions, but it takes skill to do those distortions while still maintaining the original look you were going for. Foreshortening, in its definition, is the technique of depicting an object or human body in a picture so as to produce an illusion of projection or extension in space. Here are some examples of a drawing with and without foreshortening. A basic rule you want to remember when applying foreshortening is that the objects closer to the camera will always appear bigger, and you can see this not only in art but in real life pictures and movies, which is why it is again important to use reference when tackling these new topics. Now, this tip doesn't really apply to the pose itself. It is also a good skill to use to make the drawing and pose look more energetic and three-dimensional. Line weight is when you apply more pressure or thickness to specific lines across your drawing to give the illusion of depth. Now, this can be seen in the anime Demon Slayer. If you look at the characters, their designs have varying line weights that make the animation look more three-dimensional and gives a sense of energy and flow that is appealing to see, at least for me personally. Typically, anything that's closer to the camera or frame and is away from the light source will have a thicker line weight, and anything further back or really affected by the lighting will have a thinner and light line weight. Secondary action is any action that results from the primary action of your subject or figure. So let me simplify that. When a character turns their hair quickly in an animation, and after they turn their hair has a bit of delay behind them, the hair flow is the secondary action to the head's primary action of turning. Secondary action can be applied to many different things like hair, capes, clothes, and even the environment. And it's a great way to add an extra layer of energy to your pose to make it actually seem like your character is still in motion. And it helps to sell that they are actually in a 3D space that is affecting them with drag and weight, because if everything was all just pointed downward in the same direction, then the figure will look like they're just holding a pose and not actually performing an action, which can make the drawing fall flat on the page. Now for the last tip, I want to talk about balance. And what I mean by that is when you're drawing a figure, it's important to know where the weight and balance of the figure is going. If you want to make your drawing look dynamic, it's a good idea to try to make the figure a little off balance so that everything isn't symmetrical and looks stagnant. But to twist the torso and the hips, or lean the character over to one side, or to have one foot planted firmly on the ground and the other in the air, these subtle things can change your pose from being uninteresting to dynamic. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please do let me know by leaving a like. And if you have any questions for me, or even if you have your own tips for helping to make poses more dynamic, then put it in the comments down below. And if you like my content and you want to see more, then do consider subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell so you can be aware when I upload any and everything. And here is the final product of the dynamic pose drawing, applying all the tips in the video. I hope you enjoy, and I will see you all next time.